own image and PR, but there's no law against that. He's a politician through and through. Foster was an idealist and something of a visionary. They were a good combination, the realist and the dreamer. Or the schemer and the dreamer, Ben said with a grin. They boarded the flight to New Delhi. Ben read a book for the first part of the flight, and Alex watched a movie, since she had already done her homework for Felix and all the prep work for their interview in New Delhi. She was interested to meet the tycoon who had gotten himself into trouble, and the intrigues of the scandal read like a modern-day TV series. He was one of the richest men in India, and had done things that were highly illegal and made billions more. He'd gotten caught on a minor detail, and the whole house of cards had come tumbling down. Once he was exposed, people he had done business with were denouncing him all over the place. He was liable to be sent away to prison for a long time, like Bernie Madoff, who had bilked people out of billions in the States. Alex had covered that story too. Large-scale crooks were not unfamiliar to her, and made fascinating interviews. They both slept for the last part of the trip, got to their hotel at 2 a.m., and were up early the next morning for their meeting with the man they had come to see. He was currently under house arrest, and when they were ushered into his palatial home, he greeted them with total aplomb and ease. He didn't even look worried. Alex saw instantly in the first moments of their conversation that he was entirely ego-driven and completely without remorse. He was a textbook sociopath. She had met many in her line of work: dictators, politicians, successful heads of corporations, criminals. It was a special breed, and no one was more seductive than a sociopath, which was how they got people to do what they wanted. The interview was interrupted by a sumptuous meal at midday in his white marble dining room, served by an army of servants. He was fascinating to talk to, and would have gone on all day if they'd let him. But Alex knew she had all she needed by the end of lunch. More would have been superfluous, and Ben was satisfied, too, that he had all the footage necessary to illustrate the story and the man. For 2 more days, Alex and Ben met with people he had done business with and also those he had cheated, as well as government officials and legal experts who explained the consequences of his actions. No one in India seemed to have any doubt that he was going to prison, although the tycoon who had committed the crimes had no doubt that he would be exonerated. He seemed to believe that he was smarter than everyone else, and he probably was, but he had been caught nonetheless. At the end of 3 days, they had completed all the interviews they needed and concluded all their business. They were leaving the next morning, and that night Ben made a reservation at a fabulous restaurant for dinner. "We owe it to ourselves," he said as they walked into the Dampakt, with its lavish blue and silver dining room and crystal chandeliers. The food was exquisite. The concierge at the Leela Palace, where they were staying, had recommended it to them, and occasionally in foreign cities an evening like this was a perk they both enjoyed. Alex had bought a pale blue sari for herself that afternoon, and another for her daughter, and some brightly colored bracelets she knew Faye would love. For once they were in a place where there were actually pretty things to buy. Most of the time, with the kind of stories they covered, that wasn't the case. She and Ben were both pleased with the piece, as they discussed it over dinner. It wasn't edited yet, but they had sent the rough cut to Felix digitally, and he was thrilled and praised them both for a job well done and an outstanding interview. He knew he could always count on them. "They say that India is the most romantic country in the world," Ben said to her when they ordered cognac after dinner, and Alex smiled at him. "So I hear. The last time I was here, it was for a flood that killed 8,000 people. This story has been unusually civilized." She looked relaxed and pleased. "I'm sorry you have to waste the romance of India on me," she teased, and he grinned at her. She had seen him eyeing beautiful Indian women in the streets and at the restaurant that night. "I was just thinking that too, but I'd rather be having dinner with you than the guys I've worked with. Having dinner with a bunch of Navy SEALs isn't too romantic either, and the canteens we ate in never looked like this." She laughed at the vision. "Don't get used to it. It's not likely to happen again anytime soon." Most of the time, she and Ben were in combat zones, in filthy clothes, sleeping in miserable accommodations, or in military trucks or the back of jeeps. "I was just thinking how strange it is that our subject is convinced he won't go to prison, and everyone we talk to in any kind of position of authority says it's a sure thing. Do you think he was just bullshitting us or himself?" Alex asked him. But she also knew it was the nature of sociopaths to believe themselves above the law. Denial is a wonderful thing.